Hey, welcome back to Part of the Disruption. Here with Frank and Kyle, live here on LinkedIn. And this is episode 1. We did the pilot last week, and welcome back for episode 1. I'm excited to pick somebody this morning, Frank.
Morning, Kyle.
Hey, morning. So let's look at our rundown. We'll jump right into it. Before we do, before we do, this show today is brought to you in partnership by Restream.io. Chris comes to work with us. So if you guys are looking to do live streaming and moving towards LinkedIn, YouTube, any of the platforms, Restream.io is the place to do it. That's what we're doing this time today in the Restream Live Studio. Really awesome.
Plus, one more thing, also sponsored by Nice and Contact, world leader in contact center solutions and CX.
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
So Frank, what is the rundown today? Let's pull this up here. Here's the rundown. And guys, if you guys are joining us, we got the live chat right here. So message from the chat will be displayed right here on the left side of the screen. Actually, the right side of the screen if you're looking at it on your side. So check out there. Let us know where you're watching from. We're live on LinkedIn. And Frank, here we go. Here's the rundown. I'll let you kick off.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about Godiva. I know, right? It's I hate to say this, bittersweet, right? So, from the standpoint, I know, use a pun to go to jail. So here's the thing, right? They now become another statistic in terms of real estate shutdown. It shows you how many retail businesses essentially are real estate businesses as well, and so. They're, all of the different news that's coming out is they are a victim of the pandemic. But, perfectly honest, there's other businesses that made the pivot earlier, right? So we're into the pandemic. How long?
It's been almost 9 months, right?
Yeah, but if you really think about early indications, things coming out a year. So,
Sure.
all that being said, they did not recognize that their business was a digital business and that they needed a digital experience for their customers. They hung on to the physical paradigm.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, they did. And, it's sad to see. So Godiva shutting down 128 North American locations due to the pandemic. I can't say it's something I can't say it's surprising.
No.
Because it's been happening. There's just more news in the midst of all these retail shutdowns. We're seeing retail just shut down all over the place as retail is struggling from being that brick and mortar place to becoming a click and mortar place that it needs to become. Let me say that again. They're struggling with being a brick and mortar place where they ought to have been a click and mortar place. They ought to have been focused on e-com and digital transactions prioritized over the physical ones.
Slow to move, and kind of reminds you of in a much more compressed sense, that Blockbuster versus Netflix, tale and story. I think for them, who knows, they may look back at this and see this as a seminal point in their business.
Yeah, maybe so, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As you see, what do you think is the hardest part about moving from that brick and mortar to click and mortar?
Yeah.
I think first of all, it comes with
identification of who you are as a business. So that's, you have a customer, and how are you going to serve that customer? That becomes kind of like the critical point right here, rather than saying, we're a storefront, or, we have a great in-store experience. We have customers, we need to serve customers, and we need to find out basically how we intersect with them in the smartest way. And the people that find out how to do that, whether they have a blended environment, hybrid, who knows how that works out, but you have to inspect your business and figure out what you are first.
No, yeah, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm moving right along. 420. It's not all bad news, right? So $428 million daily, right?
Yeah.
$428 million daily pumped into U.S.-based startups by VCs.
Crazy numbers, right? And it's also important to kind of inspect what's being raised versus what's being employed in terms of capital. But should this even be a surprise? Well, look at the last story. The last story tells us that we're in a digital economy.
Mm-hmm.
That's
right.
That's it. So like the transition of like, we're going to be a digital economy. We're moving to a digital economy. One day we will be this far into the digital economy is all academic now. We are a digital economy. And so now what's happening is you're seeing the reshaping, the reforming, the breaking down of paradigms. What Godiva should have done 6 months ago, which would have been hard to do because people were thinking we're going to go back to, quote, normal. But we're never going to go back to normal. We're moving towards another point on the spectrum. And so as a result, that 428 million are people basically deconstructing how we do business, how we interact, how we communicate, how we collaborate today, and rebuilding it in an environment that's going to be reflective of how people want to consume, how they want to communicate, how they want to transact.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I see this in like oversimplified in two buckets, right? Those that are dominating digital business and those that are trying to. Right? Like, oversimplified, but like that's essentially what it's boiling down to. Like the big brands and corporations that figured out their digital transformation plays, and they're already dominating in a digital way. Like they're already winning. And the rest of us, the rest of everyone else out here, like they're just trying to figure it out. They're trying to like, how do we get that edge up over the competition? How do we create better digital experiences? And it's cool to see that this much money is still being poured into U.S.-based startups that are actually hopefully trying to do just that. How can they improve the digital experience?
Yeah, and is it being employed in the right way? Well, time will tell. Everybody's kind of swinging for the fences, but if you look at it, like when was the time to invest in digital transformation? Well, probably like 5 years ago. When's the second best time? Today.
Today, without a doubt. The second best time is today. So, Frank, customer first challenge.
Yeah,
that's the topic. Creating a customer first culture is the toughest thing to do in CX.
Right.
Studies are coming out about that. There's a headline out about that today, and it's proven to be like the most challenging thing. And I feel like as we're trying to like meet up where the customer is or where the customer was, like all these companies are trying to meet where the customer was, and that they're building these platforms and environments and experiences to meet where they were. The customer's already gone. They're no longer there anymore. Like, so we have to get better at catching up to where the consumer, where the customer, where the attention, where the eyeballs actually are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's the right message at the right time, on the right channel, all these things. But like, if you look at it, like there's this intersection of people and content. All the things that we do in technology are like, to get that person to the ball on time. Like we, got them on the right channel. They got moved through an ACD, or they went into a chat. They got connected to somebody. Now there's an intersection. There's engagement. People are talking. You get them there, and then like the experience sucks because the culture sucks, because the culture is acidic. It does not deliver on the promise. You have a marketing promise, and then you have all the efforts to get people together in that chat, that text, that conversation, basically like deflated and took away from everything that had been set down. So now if you're not addressing your culture at the same time that you're addressing technically CX, you are not going to be successful. I don't believe you will be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm paraphrasing from this article here, but 20, 30 years ago, it was a different world. The voice of the customer was less available than it is today. So, like, as a brand, as a company, like maybe you could fudge a thing or two on your marketing, and you could like, maybe like this is what we want you to think that you want.
Puffery,
right? And that worked. Like, call it what it is. Like, it worked up to a time. But now that the voice of the customer is like abundantly available, like it's almost too available. Like if you're not paying attention to the voice of the customer, which is out there, like you're not relevant anymore, right? Your relevancy is gone as a brand, as an individual, as a company. If you're not paying attention to what customers actually want and what they're saying in the streets, be it Twitter or whatever else, like metaphorical streets, like what they're actually saying about you behind your back and what they're saying they want, then you are not relevant any longer.
Yeah, and it's crazy too because like it's you have to shift your mindset around it. So like if you're going to like collect data, and that data is truthful data, like you're going to have reflected back upon you maybe like an image or a vision that you didn't anticipate. And it'll seem to you like an obstacle, but like that's where the power of all this is that the feedback loop gives you the opportunity to make the changes you need, going forward. It's just how in tune are you, and you know what dials you need to turn in order to affect that change. And culture may be one of them, right? So there might be coaching that goes on. There may be like a little bit of a checkup from the neck up in terms of like how authentic your culture is, and how do you like establish better cultural like relationship and experience. And a lot of times it starts with your people internally. Like people are going to experience you once you've got them to the place on time.
No, absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, like investigating like your customer journey and like mapping out where your customers are to determine if you actually are a customer first, customer centric organization. When you do that process, you'd be probably surprised to find out, like more often than not, like you may think that you are, but once you go through that exercise, you realize that you actually are the furthest thing from it. Right? You're the furthest thing from a customer first, customer centric organization.
Yeah, there was a Bain study that was done a couple of years ago that was like painted that picture that something they went out, it was a voice of customer type of study they did, and to the organization, they felt that like 80% of their customers, they felt would say that they're doing a good job, that their experience is a good experience. And when they surveyed their customers, like 8% of their customers felt that they were actually having a good experience. Like it was completely, opposite in terms of, what they thought, which is if you didn't have that metric there, you'd just be flying along the road, happy, thinking that everything is good and dandy.
Oh, without a doubt.
Let's move on to the next one because I think we're leaning into it, right? Like you talked about customer journey.
Yes.
Let's talk about, channel confusion. Like we hear people like all the time, we're working with the channel, or you hear marketers, they're talking about the channel, or you hear people that are in the communications world and they're talking about channels.
Yes.
Not the same channels.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so talking about these, like, there's so much channel confusion, right?
Yes.
With respect to, as a business, you have to work with different channels to grow your revenue. Sales velocity, like what kind of channels you work with? Like
marketing channels.
Marketing channel, partner channel, customer channels, right? Like how are you direct channels, right?
Right.
B2B, B2C, like every company, whether you're B2B or B2C, like you have avenues for both, really, that are unexplored typically. Underdeveloped.
Yeah, and if you're looking at marketing and you're thinking channel, you're thinking about like maybe paid search or paid social or direct mail. You're thinking about what are the ways that people as you maybe look to do ad spend. Where are you going to put your money? Where are you going to drive and acquire audience? How are you going to convert that audience into some form of activation? And will you be able to get attribution to that? Will you be able to see ultimately that the campaigns that you're running, the journeys that you're creating, et cetera, align with that channel? And so that's one distinction. But then you walk down the road and you're talking to somebody in IT, somebody in the contact center, and now channel means, are we on voice? Are we on text? Are we on chat? Are we on social? What is the channel that is going to provide the greatest level of lift, based upon the people that we're trying to communicate to? So while you spend all this money in the marketing saying like, oh, I know who my audience is here, once they come in, maybe one specific audience may say like, I really don't ever want to call you.
Right.
I mean, I like you. I like you, Kyle. But I don't ever want to talk to you on the phone. I want to be like in a chat. I prefer to have self-service and on a bot, or I prefer to like, just text me, please. Just text me when it's done. Just
give me the most frictionless process available of communication.
Yeah. Respect my time. Give me documentation. Thank you. In that way you're serving me, I'll like you the best. But like, how do you know which ones, it all comes down to conversion. So you've got this interesting layer of marketing channels, interesting layer of communication channels. And then you have somebody saying like, well, how are we going to go to market? Like I've got direct sellers inside the organization, or I've got a channel out there. right?
Right.
I've got consultants and brokers and SIs, and I've got like who's going to bring me business, who are we like, affiliated with, affiliate programs, et cetera, et cetera. That's another form of channel. So like we can literally sit down in a conversation and talk about, you can see the confusion, right?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's every which direction, right?
Who's talking and to whom?
Exactly.
Even then, there could be like a mix-up.
Yeah. Oh, even then, without a doubt. And it's fascinating to watch companies try to figure that out and struggling right now, falling on their face.
Yeah.
So they definitely need a hand there. Speaking of needing a hand, Blackheart raises $8.8 million. First of all, like, who the heck is Blackheart? We're going to tell you right now because I think this is very relevant to what we were just saying. So Blackheart is a try before you buy platform for online merchants. So what that means is imagine like getting kitchenware, cookware. Imagine getting that like shipped to your house without paying $0 for it.
Right.
You get to actually use the cookware, make a meal with it, and realize I don't actually like this cookware and send it back.
That's right.
Right. So you try before you buy. If you like it, well, then we'll just invoice you. We'll charge your card on file.
Yes.
That's a very interesting shift in you can see like they raised 8.8 million in Series A, so like that showed me like that there's something there, like there's something very profoundly there as it's relating to creating a digital experience that's transcending to a physical experience.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so brilliant on so many different ways. I mean, if you think about like a retail environment, Godiva. Let's take Godiva.
Yeah.
I don't know why I would come up with that one, but let's just take that one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Like they've got a space, they have product, it's sitting on shelves, and they're waiting for people to come in. TikTok, dollars and cents rolling out the door, holding costs, real estate costs. So that's why things cost so much in retail, right? The difference between retail and wholesale can be 2x, 3x, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to factor all that in. And then you've got people standing around as well waiting. Take that same level of waste. Let's think of it in terms of waste. I mean, if you were a lean manufacturing company and you consider that muda, you had waste there. What would you do? Well, we might be able to say like, well, there's that much margin if we kept the, our pricing the same. And I turned around and I just like, rather than having it sit on a shelf, I just sit on a shelf. I just here, take it. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've got margins in this.
I've got what's the probability of taking it and sending it back to me? Right. Especially if I educate you really well ahead of time. That's the key, right? Blind purchasing, like you have to know your audience, you have to educate your audience, and then you have to like take out the friction in the shipping side. So all these things like shipping, again, look at the shipping infrastructure that's in place now with the likes of Amazon, what's been compounded through the COVIDs and the pandemic, and here we are today. It's much more sophisticated. And so you can rely upon it. So you have reliability on shipping, reliability on returns that you didn't have before, and you have enough margin in there that you're going to have a certain level of waste. I mean, some stuff might even just get destroyed by the time it comes back. It can't even be refurbished, right?
Right, yeah. If you're Godiva, like your chocolatier, like how much chocolate are you making in a retail storefront that like no one's buying?
No one's buying.
Right. So it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'd be curious to see like how that model grabs adoption from people actually like wanting to try a lot more things before they buy it. In the age of Amazon's coming to the door every 30 minutes, or even more frequently than that in some households, right? It'd be interesting to see like how anyone else can find room in this market to compete against that, right?
It's true. I mean, we kind of have it in the digital world, right? Freemium.
Yes.
It exists.
Oh, yeah.
Try it.
Yeah.
Like it. Subscribe.
And is it something that like maybe it does get really adopted, like it does grab adoption, like the second that Amazon says, you know what, we like that model, we're going to do that here. Does that company just like go away?
Yeah. I mean, we already subscribe to durable goods already, right? Like there's leases on cars, et cetera, et cetera. So like, at some particular point in time, you may look at a kitchen and say that kitchen cost me $100 a month.
Yeah.
Right. And every couple of years I get a whole new set of pots and pans. But I think I may have just dropped an idea.
There you go.
Yeesh.
There you go. Speaking of ideas, let's talk about the final idea we got here. Slack-backed yak. And that's fun to say. Slack-backed yak.
This is kind of like a Dr. Seuss thing.
It's a Dr. Seuss thing, yes. Red fish, blue fish, one fish, two fish. Exactly.
Look at that.
There we go. I can recite a little bit of it, yeah. But Slack-backed yak. So there's a company called Yak, and it's backed by Slack. Right? So, and what they're doing, $7.5 million raised to bring voicemail back from the dead.
Right?
As if this is the thing that we need. But, I think I actually see it. I actually understand this because everything that's old is new again. Like, look at Clubhouse. Like, the link's on the screen right here. Acuerdo.club will be in Clubhouse right after this. And, audio is coming back. It's coming back with vengeance. Like,
It's back, baby.
Like, the TV killed the radio star. Now podcasts are killing the radio star and the TV star, right?
Let's get the Buggles back. Let's get them to kind of like drop a new. They need to reset that. Well, it's interesting. You're right. 100% correct. If you look at the fact that, voice, outreach, or if you think in terms of like business development companies making phone calls to people are not picking up their phones, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may not even be answering their phones in terms of like looking at voicemail drops that come in there periodically. So the key is like, what is the power of it? Well, you hear a voice has warmth, voice has context. And there's something definitely very valuable about it. I don't have all the stats on it, but like there's something very valuable about it. And so you take away the fact that people are using, even they may even have like systems that do automatically voicemail drops, like through a contact center solution. But what about if you were able to leave, a voicemail for somebody through a text, right? And they just click on it and listen to it. Or you drop that into LinkedIn, like you can drop in a drift video. Now you're taking things that it's almost like a federation or a delivery cycle of something that was cut off because the outreach on voice was so poor. It's like, what are we going to do with this great little nugget called a voicemail?
Right. Oh, and I mean, really, like LinkedIn has already implemented these voice drops about a year or so ago. And like I think it's been wildly successful. Like I've messaged people on LinkedIn like, hey, I don't really have time to type a whole paragraph story to you, but I can leave a quick voicemail drops you because it's frictionless for me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually kind of engaging for you to listen to it because it's me and my words instead of me typing it out. Like you get to pick the inflection and the tone of voice. Let me read this quote to you right here from Pat Matthews, the chief executive of Active Capital. He said, "The future of meetings will be asynchronous, in your ears and hands-free." Seems reasonable enough. I mean, as we said earlier, like removing friction, right? That voice very well could be the future, right? And it very well is. Like think of like Alexa, Siri, OK Google, all those things. I just set off everyone's house right now with all those sayings, all those commands. But like voice may very well be the future, right? So as we get back to a Slack back yak, right? That may make sense.
I think we're going to want to follow them too, because it's going to be interesting. When Slack first came out, their new buyer, right?
Yeah.
That they were very like singularly focused on just that text messaging. I say not text, but like messaging back and forth, true presence.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, what do you see integrated into like documents? They kind of almost become like a content management system. Whoop, okay, now media. Oh, that you can do a video. A conversation via.
Right.
So like, they started to like, they kind of did the land and expand around their platform. As this comes into, Slack, it may stay kind of gated and focused and just expanding upon the experience of voice messaging. So it's going to be interesting to see again, their evolution just by who they were acquired by. But I think it's awesome.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, I do as well. So, that concludes today's part of the disruption. Frank, any final words?
No, other than the fact that like disruption.
No, other than the thing, mindset around disruption. The obstacle is the way, right? The impediment to action creates action. The impediment becomes the way, right? And so all of these things, try to keep a positive attitude around the disruption, stop, drop, and roll. Look at strategy, see how you're going to incorporate that into your business and your organization. Chances are you'll get a lift and you'll be able to differentiate yourself.
Yeah, no, I love it. Very wise words, guys. Check it out. We'll catch you guys live next Tuesday again for episode 2 as we're figuring things out here. And guys, join us on something else that we're trying to figure out right now, Clubhouse After Show. So I saw Raymond out there. I know, Raymond, you're on Clubhouse. Appreciate you tuning in again, sir. Feel free to jump into Clubhouse with us and let's get the conversation going. It's Acuerdo.club. Again, it's Acuerdo.club. It's on the screen right now. We'll be there for the next 30 minutes. And we'll see you guys next week.
Shalom.